Well guys, my name is João. I have been a Java EE developer for the last 10 years and I would like to show you how easy it is to migrate or to move to a Spring Boot framework from the Java EE perspective. So the first of all, I have only 15 minutes and so I will try to show you a full application development here, a whole application, and so I want you to access the start.spring.io. It's a kind of a scaffold or application that generates the starter or the boot code for you. First of all, I'm going to define my package here. I will call my application, I will just let it demo, and I will only define two dependencies here. It's gonna be web and JPA API. That's good. I will generate my project here. It will download a zip package with my application generated here. I'm going to extract it in somewhere else. Let's see, dev spring. I have one application previously set here. I will extract it right here. Okay, we can now close it right now. Well, let's go and open IntelliJ and open the project we just generated. It's at dev spring. Let's see, it's right here, but I don't want this project, I want this one. Let's open it right now. Well, IntelliJ is trying to generate our structure, our first structure based on a Maven project. We're going to open the pom.xml. The first step, I would like to format this code, and I will drop two dependencies here. That's gonna be, I have previously saved it here to avoid some problems during the video, and so I will drop it here, paste it here. These dependencies are PostgreSQL JDBC4 driver, and the other one is org.project Lombok, that is the project Lombok. Okay, let's enable the auto import here, and let's go to the class that Spring Initializer generated for us. It's a plain old Java class with a public static void main method that boots our application. For this sample, I'm going to write the whole application at the same Java file, and for that reason we can't define other public class at the same file. One Java file should or must have only one Java public class, and so I'm sorry for this guy, and I think it's his first motorcycle. And so let's continue. I will first define an entity here. I will call it user. Okay, and I will define some attributes here, some fields like an integer ID, private string name, and a private string email. That's good. I'm going to annotate this class with data from Lombok, and annotate this class with entity from JavaX persistence in order to make it a JPA entity. And I'm also going to annotate this class with a table, because user is a reserved word in Postgres, and so I will call this table app user to avoid problems. And I will also annotate this with ID in order to make it the primary key of my table at the database. I have previously set my database here at the Postgres with an user and single database defined, and so you can do it by yourself. Let's start defining our data layer here, And in Spring Boot or in Spring environment, data layer based on Spring Data Framework is only an interface. I will call this user repo, because repository is a hard word for me to pronunciate, and so let's call it user repo, with which will stand the paging and sorting repository, and I will pass my entity here and my primary key here, which is user and integer. Well, all done. We have to annotate this with repository. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. It's very hard for me, but I'm sure in advance. I'm sorry in advance. Repository. Okay, that's good. And so we can go on defining a service layer that I'm going to call the user serves. And I'm going to define two methods here. The first one's public void, public user create user, or we can call it simply save and pass the user here and return something. And after this we will create a public list user that will be the method we are going to use to list our user or our saved user, and we are going to call this list. Okay, nice. Let's import this. Nice. Well, first of all, in order to make this class a service, we are going to annotate this class as serves. It makes sense. And in order to get access to our repository, we are going to annotate this with auto wire. In this case, auto wired, it's pretty similar to the AJB or inject annotation from the Java EE environments. And so we are going to inject this here, private user repo. I'm going to call this user repo too. Nice. And so we finally can use our repo to return user repo save user right here, simply like this, and return user repo dot find all, simple like this. Find all returns iterable user of user, and so we have to typecast it here first. List user, and just import and format the class, and everything is all set, is all done. So we can go on, define another class here called user controller, which is going to be our application interface with users. We are going to expose this like a REST and RESTful API, and so for that I'm going to auto wire my service layer here, like private user serves, and I'm going to define the same two methods here. And we really don't need, it's not necessary to do that, but I like to divide my applications with these three layers, even it is a small and sample application. So we can go on annotating our endpoint here. It's going to be a REST controller. Nice. And we are going to request mapping here and define it to API/users. Pretty simple, pretty good. Nice. And in this case, I would like to my user save method to be accessed by a post request, and so that's why I'm annotating it like with post mapping, and I'm going to annotate this with request body. Well, the list methods are going to be accessed by get mapping, and so I have annotated it with get mapping. That's good. Well, we can't access our REPL here because we are going to use our user serves in this point, in this controller layer, and also here user serves. Nice, pretty good, but our method here is called list, so that's why we are changing it here. Pretty good, it's everything done. Our application is all set. We have a full 3-layer application here defined in less than 10 minutes. I want you figure out how long would you take to do the same thing using Java EE spec. Well, now we can go into the application properties. I have it previously saved here to avoid problems, as I told you, with my database configuration and Hibernate configuration. So I simple pass it here and access my database. I forgot its name. Let's see, Springboot App 1, Springboot App 1, the same user is going to pass it here. My password is a simple password. Don't do that in your real world production environment. Here I defined my org.postgre.driver. That's my JDBC driver. Here I defined my PostgreSQL dialect, and here I defined it as create and drop property in order to make my application to create my database during the runtime and drop it after it runs. And so we have all set here. We can simply right click our demo application class and run it. To avoid some problems, let's build it first. Nice. Well, and now we can run our application by right clicking this class and selecting run or Alt Shift F6. Let's go. I hope everything is well. Let's see. Well, our application was started in 8 seconds, something like this. We are going to the Google Chrome. I have add here like org. It's a REST client. I can make REST requests by this guy, and so the first request I'm going to do will be a post request, that it's going to access my application. Let's confirm our endpoint before, because I really don't remember. API users, let's go back there, and where is it's right here. API users is correct. I'm going to define my headers like add header, I'm sorry, my pronunciation is terrible, application./JSON. I'm sorry, this is the content type, and this is application JSON, and our body is gonna look like this. I will just put one here for my ID. My username will be Mart Friedman. My email is going to be friedman@mason.com.pr, and so we can send. We have a response code here. Is everything okay? And we have a user stored in our database, and I will start another one here. I'm going to start myself. It could be sent. Okay, everything is okay. To confirm that, we can go here, define a get request, to the user's API and simply send. Now we have our user stored in our database. I'm sorry for my pronunciation again, but it's okay. And back in here, within less than 10 minutes we have a complete web application using JPA, using a service layer, using a REST controller, using JSON, using Tomcat, using everything you need to start an application. That's why I started loving Spring Boot. I want you to figure out how long would you take to make something like this, like that in Java EE. Thank you for watching. I'm sorry for my English again. That's my first video. I will try to improve my skills, my English conversation skills in the next videos. And just let me know anything you want in the comments. Thank you. See you next.